There are men who think that, as long as they are strong, have money, and have reason, they can keep a woman by their side. But they forget, women do not leave because of lack of material things. They leave because their hearts have been neglected for too long. And by the time he realizes, that woman has not come back. Article 1. Selfishness. When a man thinks only of himself. A woman doesn't leave because he forgets to say I love you. She leaves because day after day, he only thought about himself. When she was tired, he said, stop complaining. When she cried, he said, it's nothing serious. When she needed to be heard, he stayed silent. A woman doesn't need a perfect man. She just needs one who can place his ego aside and listen with his heart. One rainy night, they sat together, yet the space between them felt farther than ever. He stared at his phone, while she looked out the window, eyes lost, silent. In his mind, everything revolved around me. I'm tired. I'm busy. I need rest. In her heart, only one feeling remained. She no longer mattered. Women don't argue endlessly. They slowly go silent when they feel no one's truly listening. A man's selfishness isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides behind the mask of reason. He thought he was strong because he showed no weakness. But that cold silence was what hurt her the most. Sometimes, all she needed was a hug. But he chose silence instead. A woman doesn't need a hero. She needs a man who can understand her pain. But he only said, you're overthinking again. When a woman stops talking, it means she's already walking away in her heart. He thought she was just upset, but she was already exhausted. Women don't leave out of anger. They leave when they no longer feel loved. That's when the man realizes all he's left with is an empty room and the echo of his own heartbeat. Selfishness doesn't make a man strong. It only makes him lose the one person who truly loved him. Article 2. Insecurity. When a man loses his own value. A woman can love a man deeply, but she can't carry the weight of his insecurity forever. The moment a man doubts his own worth, he begins to chase validation instead of purpose. He asks too much. He questions too often. And slowly, his fear of losing her becomes the very reason she walks away. In the beginning, he was confident, calm, grounded. She felt safe around him. But as time passed, he started comparing himself to every man she talked to, every message on her phone. Insecurity doesn't whisper, it screams inside the mind. Am I enough? Does she still want me? Every time she smiled at someone else, he saw betrayal where there was only kindness. He began to control, not out of strength, but fear. He checked her phone, questioned her words, built walls where love once lived. And the more he tried to hold her close, the more she drifted away. A woman cannot be the mirror that makes a man feel worthy. Because when a man loses his sense of self, love turns into survival. He started saying things like, you'll leave me one day, won't you? Not realizing those words were pushing her further away. She didn't need a perfect man. She needed a man who believed in himself. But his fear became her prison. And when she finally walked away, he called her heartless, not realizing she left to save herself. Insecurity doesn't show weakness. It hides the strength he never learned to trust. A woman can love a broken man, but not a man who refuses to believe he can heal. Article 3. Control. When a man tries to own what he fears to lose. A man who fears losing a woman often becomes the reason she leaves. Love turns into control. Affection becomes interrogation. Care turns into possession. And what once felt like safety slowly becomes a cage. At first, his control looked like protection. Text me when you get home. Don't go out too late. But over time, his words turned into rules. Who were you with? Why didn't you answer? Control doesn't come from love. It comes from fear, the fear of not being enough. He told himself he was protecting her. But really, he was protecting his ego. The woman began to shrink herself, to avoid another argument, another question, another suspicion. Love doesn't demand permission, but fear always does. He thought control kept her close, but it only reminded her how far away she already felt. The more he tried to keep her, the more she disappeared in front of him. Control is the opposite of love, because love requires trust, not surveillance. A woman can forgive anger, but she cannot live without freedom. He said, I just want to know where you are. But what he really meant was, I don't trust where I stand. A woman will stay when she feels safe, not when she feels watched. When she finally left, he called her ungrateful. But all she wanted was peace. Control is not strength. It's fear disguised as power. The tighter a man holds on, the faster love slips through his hands. Article 4. Emotional neglect. When a man stops feeling. A woman doesn't need her man to fix everything. She just wants to feel seen. But when a man forgets how to feel, when he stops noticing her laughter, her silence, her tears, that's when love begins to fade. Not because it died, but because it starved. They used to talk for hours about dreams, fears, silly things. But lately, every conversation feels like routine. He stopped asking, "How was your day?" And she stopped answering, because she already knew he wasn't listening. Love doesn't vanish all at once. It disappears one unnoticed moment at a time. She wore a new dress, hoping he'd notice. He didn't even look up. Emotional neglect isn't about silence. It's about absence while being present. He thought providing money, food, and shelter was enough. But she needed something he stopped giving: attention. Women don't crave perfection. They crave connection. Every "I'm fine," she said, was another brick in the wall between them. He believed emotions made men weak. But in truth, they make men human. She waited for him to notice her fading light. But his pride was louder than her silence. When a man stops feeling, he stops being the reason she smiles. She didn't want another man. She just wanted the man she used to know. By the time he realized her heart had grown cold, she'd already learned to live without warmth. Emotional neglect doesn't leave scars on skin. It leaves silence in the soul. A woman doesn't stop loving when a man changes. She stops when he stops trying. Article 5. Pride. When a man chooses ego over love. Pride makes a man believe he's always right. But in love, being right means nothing if it costs you the person who stood beside you. Some men lose everything, not because they didn't love her, but because they couldn't lower their pride to say, "I was wrong." Their arguments weren't about the truth anymore. They were about who would win. Every time she reached out, his silence screamed louder than any words. Pride builds walls where love once built bridges. He couldn't say, "I'm sorry," because in his mind, apology meant defeat. She didn't want perfection, she wanted peace. But peace cannot exist where ego rules. Every time he won an argument, he lost a piece of her heart. He thought control was power. But true power is in the courage to be humble. Pride is a lonely companion. It wins every battle, but loses the war. She stopped arguing, not because he was right, but because she no longer cared to prove him wrong. A man's pride may protect his image, but it destroys his intimacy. One day, he came home to find her gone. Not because she stopped loving him, but because she couldn't fight his pride anymore. Pride doesn't cry, but it watches the door close in silence. He never said, "I'm sorry," and she never came back. Pride makes a man feel strong, until he realizes he's standing alone. A real man isn't afraid to apologize, because he knows love is worth more than being right. Article 6. Lack of ambition. When a man stops growing. A woman can love a man who has nothing, but she can't respect a man who no longer tries. Because when a man stops chasing purpose, he becomes a shadow of who he used to be. And slowly, the woman beside him stops seeing him as the man she once believed in. In the beginning, he had dreams, wild, fearless dreams. She admired the fire in his eyes. But over time, life became an excuse. It's too late. It's too hard. Maybe someday. Ambition doesn't die overnight. It fades with every comfort he chooses over challenge. She wanted to believe in him. But how do you follow someone who no longer leads himself? The fire she once loved became smoke that only made her eyes burn. He stopped talking about dreams. Now he only complained about life. A man without ambition becomes a burden to his own soul. She didn't want his success. She wanted his effort. But he chose comfort over courage. And comfort kills slowly. Every day he settled, she loved him a little less. Not out of anger, but disappointment. Because women don't want perfection. They want movement, progress, purpose. A man's vision is what gives love direction. Without it, love just stands still. When he stopped dreaming, she stopped believing. And when she left, he finally looked at the man he had become and didn't recognize him anymore. A woman doesn't leave when a man has nothing. She leaves when he stops trying to become something. Article 7. Disrespect. When a man stops valuing her. Love dies faster in disrespect than in distance. Because distance creates space. But disrespect destroys trust. Every harsh word, every careless joke, every moment, he made her feel small. Built the walls she later used to leave him. At first, it was playful, teasing, sarcasm, laughter. But over time, her smile stopped reaching her eyes. He called her too sensitive. Every time his words cut deeper than he noticed. Disrespect doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it whispers through apathy. She stopped sharing her thoughts. Because every time she did, he turned them into a joke. He didn't realize. Every laugh at her expense cost him a piece of her respect. A man who mocks what his woman feels teaches her to stop feeling it all. He confused dominance with disrespect, not realizing that strength is gentle, not cruel. The strongest men protect a woman's dignity, not their own ego. When respect leaves a relationship, love starts suffocating under its absence. She once looked at him with admiration. Now, she only looks through him. He started calling her ungrateful. But she wasn't. She was just tired of feeling small. A woman doesn't stay where her worth is questioned. She stays where her soul is seen. When she left, he said, "You've changed." But she didn't. She just stopped allowing disrespect to sound like love. Disrespect doesn't destroy love overnight. It kills it drop by drop. A real man never has to make his woman feel small, to feel like a man himself. Article 8. Emotional imbalance. When a man takes more than he gives. Love is not a transaction. But when one person keeps giving, and the other only takes, love becomes exhaustion. A woman can carry a man through hard times, but not through his indifference. Because the moment love feels one-sided, it stops feeling like love at all. In the beginning, she gave freely, time, care, and understanding. It made her happy to see him rise. But over time, he stopped giving back. He got used to taking her effort and calling it love. She encouraged his dreams. He ignored hers. The balance was gone. She poured, he received. And slowly, she became empty. She stopped asking for help because she learned he wouldn't come. When love becomes obligation, it's no longer love, it's survival. He stopped saying, "Thank you." She stopped expecting it. A woman can give endlessly, but she cannot breathe in a love that only takes. He thought her strength was infinite. He didn't see she was breaking while smiling. A man who only takes will eventually lose. The woman who once gave him everything. Love is not about keeping score. But even love has limits. When she stopped giving, he finally realized how much she once did. But by then, she had nothing left to give. A love that takes without giving always ends in silence. A man doesn't lose a woman because she stopped loving him. He loses her because she got tired of loving alone. Article 9. Lack of appreciation. When a man takes love for granted. A woman doesn't leave because she stopped loving. She leaves because she got tired of being unseen. When a man forgets to appreciate what he has, life eventually shows him what it feels like to lose it. Appreciation isn't about grand gestures. It's about the little moments that say, "I see you." At first, he used to thank her for everything. The meals, the support, the small acts of care. But comfort turned those thank yous into silence. He started seeing her effort as normal, not special. Appreciation is oxygen to love. Without it, it suffocates quietly. She never wanted praise, just to be noticed. He forgot the value of simple gratitude. A woman doesn't need gifts, she needs recognition. He took her consistency for granted, until the day it was gone. He realized too late that appreciation is a habit, not a reaction. The words he never said became the echoes he couldn't escape. She left quietly, without anger, just emptiness. And the home that once felt alive, now echoed with his own neglect. A woman's love fades when it's taken for granted. Not instantly, but inevitably. He finally understood. It wasn't love she needed more of, it was gratitude. A woman doesn't want to be worshipped. She just wants to be appreciated before she becomes a memory. Article 10. Emotional distance. When a man forgets how to love. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's distance. The quiet kind that grows when two hearts stop reaching for each other. A woman doesn't wake up one day and stop loving. It fades slowly, every time he chooses silence over connection. And by the time he notices, love has already turned into memory. Once, their love felt alive, full of laughter, small touches, long talks. But over time, the words became fewer, and the silence became normal. He stopped asking, "How do you feel?" She stopped believing he cared. Emotional distance doesn't begin with anger. It begins with indifference. He thought love was about staying together. But love is about staying connected. She wanted his presence, not his body. His attention, not his routine. Love doesn't die in arguments. It dies in moments of nothingness. She started talking less. Not because she had nothing to say, but because he stopped listening. He thought silence meant peace. But it meant goodbye. The home stayed the same. Only the hearts changed. One day, he looked across the table and realized she wasn't really there anymore. Not in body, but in spirit. Emotional distance doesn't hurt at once. It kills slowly, like frost on a flower. And when she finally left, there was no fight, no tears, just quiet acceptance. He finally understood. Love isn't lost when she leaves. It's lost when you stop showing up. In the end, love doesn't disappear. It just moves to someone who knows how to feel it. Sometimes, it's not that she stopped loving you. It's that you stopped being the man she fell in love with. You stopped listening. You stopped growing. You stopped showing up. And when a woman feels unseen, she doesn't scream. She quietly walks away. Don't wait until it's too late to understand what love really needs. Respect, effort, and presence. If this message hit something inside you, give this video a like, subscribe for more stories that open your eyes, and tell me in the comments, which of these 10 truths spoke to you the most? Remember, change doesn't start when she leaves. It starts when you finally decide to face yourself.